We good to go?
Yeah, July.
All right, this is a regular scheduled meeting of the Finance Committee, October 7th at
5:40.
5:40. And members of the committee, Council Trimble, Committee Chair, we also have Council Dean, Council Fornia, Council Leonard. The committee members, we also have Council Hawes in attendance, Council Schaefer, and Council Pelletier. Did I get everybody in the two? Oh, she's no longer on the Zoom. So, the first session, the first item is an executive session, but we need a motion to go in.
I make a motion to go into executive session 36 MRSA section 841-2 hardship abatement application.
Second.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Council Dean,
Yes.
Council Cornia.
Yeah.
I'm a yes, Council Leonard.
Yes.
Okay, we'll just go down the hall.
Yeah, we're down the hall.
And I think we'll, All right, we're back in live session out of executive session and entertain a motion on the abatement request.
So, second.
Without any objection, the abatement has approval. Bids and purchasing.
All right, we got a few to get through tonight. Our first one is a front end loader for Public Works. This is a large loader. We do what's called a life cycle costing on it, where when we go to bid, we require that the piece of equipment be purchased back after a certain number of years for a set price. So we did go out to bid. We received 4 bids. The recommendation is to go with United Construction and Forestry. They were the low bid. At the out-of-pocket cost for us will be $301,900. But it will be purchased back at a guaranteed $150,000 in 5 years. So the life cycle cost is $151,900. The budget was $221,000, but we have another piece of equipment that will be having it buyback this year, which is $94,000. So between the two, that buyback and the budget, there is enough funding to pay the $301,000 out of pocket this year. So the recommendation is to go ahead and award the purchase to United Construction and Forestry for 2025 John Deere. And this would go on full council because the initial out of pocket is $301,000.
Any questions on this item? Comments? Motion?
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Without any objection, this has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is a small front end loader. We also went out to bid for this. We received in 3 bids. The low bidder is from Central Equipment Company at $87,844. We had budgeted $120,000, so it was well under budget, which was nice. It's part of the approved 2025 budget, so request is to move forward with Central Equipment Company and purchase this small front end loader.
It's previously been determined that Council Leonard has a conflict on items dealing with central equipment. Is there any
Motion.
item moved? Is there a second?
Second,
And without any objection, this item has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is a rental van for fleet services. We also went out to bid for the rental van. We received in 3 bids. They ranged from $42,665 to $52,200. The recommendation is to go with the low bidder, which was Darlings Ford, for a new 2023 Chrysler Pacifica, which is going to be a plug-in hybrid. At $43,665, it is under the approved budget amount of $50,000. The old van will be sold at our annual auction. So recommendation is to move forward with Darlings Ford for a new 2023 Chrysler at $43,665.
Any questions on this or motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Without objection, that has approval.
Thank you. Our next one, a lot of vehicles tonight, is a vehicle for the airfield maintenance. We also went out to bid for that. We received in 4 bids. The low bidder was O'Connell Auto Park out of Augusta, and they were a low bidder with a 2025 Chevy Silverado 1500. It's replacing a 2007 GMC 3500 van. Their bid was $46,754, which is under the approved budget of $60,000. So the recommendation is to move forward with O'Connell Auto Park and purchase that vehicle.
Just one question. I've noticed a couple other bids, they're all half tons, but some of these are crew cabs, this one is a regular cab in this bid, it doesn't say crew cab, right? Do they need it? Did it require a crew cab?
I'm looking back to Mike, but I didn't get an answer, so he's coming up.
Mike Moran, Police Director. They're all crew
They're all the
cabs.
same, okay, great. And is there a motion on this item?
So moved.
Move in second.
I'll wait for the next one.
It has approval.
Our next item is I combined this into one memo. We need portable column lifts for both fleet services and the airport. We did go out to bid. We received 3 responses. The low bid was from Richard Dingman Inc., which is RDI Equipment. Their bid was for $50,412.50 per set. There would be 1 set for fleet and 1 set for the airport. The airport would be replacing a 1995 drive-on lift. And Fleet would be replacing portable column lifts that they have, but they are very old and in need of replacement. The total for each is, so the total purchase would be $100,825, $50,412.50 each. They've each budgeted $70,000 for this purchase, so they both came in under budget. So they looking for approval to contract with RDI Equipment and buy a set of portable column lifts for both the Fleet and the airport division.
Questions on this item or motion?
So moved.
Second. Without objection, as approval, thank you.
Our next item is to pursue work on Hilder Street North. It's a force main replacement. We did go out to bid. We received 5 bidders. The low bidder was Eastwood Contractors at $313,125. We've had excellent past history with Eastwood. The staff recommended going forward with them with this project. And this again would go to full council for approval, and it is under the approved budget for the project.
Any questions or a motion on this item?
So moved.
Second.
All right, without objection, this item has approval.
Thank you. Our next item is for Realtor Services. As we're going to talk about in a little bit, but what we have discussed with the committee previously, the new changes to the state law regarding property that has been acquired through a matured lien requires that the city sell the property through a licensed real estate broker or agent. Knowing that we had to comply with that, we went out to bid for those services for all city property sales, not just the matured lien sales, but to have one broker to deal with for anything. So we put out an RFP. We received 2 responses back. One was from John Hyatt, Realtor and SI Associated Property Management, and one from the Boulos Company. Staff reviewed the proposals. Community and Economic Development typically is the department that handles our property sales. They reviewed the proposals. And they have come forward and recommended the Boulos Company, mainly because they are a little bit bigger and they can offer more support and more associates to assist with the needs that we have. It would be a 5-year contract, and they proposed a commission rate of 8% for sales below 200,000 and a sliding scale that drops down to 6.5% for sales that are for more than $1 million. This will be on full council for next week, where it's going to be a 5-year contract. We don't really know what our total commissions would be. It's going to go to full council for approval, even though it may or may not reach the threshold that typically would require council approval.
Council Fish?
Yes, can you explain how are the proposals sent out when they go out to bid? I'm just surprised that we have in the local Bangor area several great real estate companies, and a couple of them that handle both residential and commercial. Bose company does primarily commercial, big box stores. They do a lot of leases. And for anybody in the real estate world with 1.5 years, I mean, you barely understand the forms, never mind the process. And there was federal new laws recently changed August 17th that even seasoned agents are having a hard time. So I'm just, Portland agents with 5 people when we have a lot of local agents. Maybe you can just, I'm just kind of confused why out of the quality of realtors we have local, how we chose or got Boulos to be recommended. Maybe you can explain it so I understand better.
I can at least explain the initial proposal. We drafted up an RFP, explain what we were looking for, which is a real estate agent or brokerage firm that would handle all city sales, both residential, commercial, property acquired through the lien process, which requires a little bit more work versus property that we could acquire through other means. We posted that to our website. We also post an ad in the paper when we do an RFP to let the public know that one is available for to bid on. We did receive, I don't know who the questions came from here tonight, but I know that we did receive some questions because there was a question period One of the questions was specifically, did we want to split and do two separate RFPs, one for residential, one for commercial? We didn't want to do that. We wanted to try to work with one firm. So when the time period came by and there was a deadline of when to submit a bid, these were the only two companies that submitted bids. None of the local firms, other than John Hyatt, submitted a bid. I was quite surprised. I was expecting us to get but a handful, but we only ended up with two. And like I said, CNED staff reviewed both proposals, and they felt that the Boulos company had more experience and a bigger well of experience to dip into to help us with our ongoing needs.
How many out of our inventory of properties that we have and that you project perhaps coming on, what portion of them would you, what percentage of them would you consider residential versus what portion of them would you consider to be commercial?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's close to 100% actually is a residential with the placarded and vacant buildings right now within Bangor.
Okay. I don't know that the local real estate, they get ingrained with the day-to-day activity in our local market. And I know like for foreclosures, it's a part of our daily, not daily perhaps, but it's a regular habit to go to the HUD site and look at those foreclosures. And I just think that this is a rare opportunity and perhaps they didn't, look at the site or go to the paper, hard copy newspapers today are, everything is done by internet. And I'm just, I personally, I don't know what, I tell you guys all this, pretty soon I'm not going to be able to say I'm new at this, but I still feel new at this. And I just feel a little uncomfortable really not giving a better opportunity to our local realtors and even exempt my company. I mean, I'm thinking of, some other commercial realtors in town that actually do residential, or even the residential companies we have. We have some very seasoned agents that work with investors that do a lot of purchase plus improvements for a lot of those first-time home buyers that need housing. And, I'm just wondering if we couldn't have had another avenue of trying to involve the local realtors before we commit to this. And I'm probably a little late in the game on this, but it's just kind of my thoughts.
I would just say, I understand Councilor Fisher's concerns, but I think we followed the process as far as advertising it. I mean, it's unfortunate we didn't get more bids, but I unfortunately disagreed with the recommendation as well. I think it should be split. I know a little bit about real estate and the Boulos company. They don't do residential real estate, and they're a commercial real estate company. It doesn't make sense to hire them to market foreclosures in our houses in Bangor. It just doesn't make any sense at all. So, I would think you'd at least split it and give the local person the residential and the Boulos company the commercial stuff they have. And I know, and we've had a relationship with a local commercial firm. So did they not get notified? Did we notify the current vendors of this? Because they obviously didn't bid the local commercial.
I'm gonna
Yeah, so we did send this out to GBAR, which is the Greater Bangor
Right.
Realtors
Yeah.
Association.
So
So
they go-
that did go up to
But
them.
like hasn't the who's been at commercial? Epstein, yeah, they didn't, okay.
Yeah, these were the only two
Right,
companies
yeah,
that submitted
so-
the bid.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but we did advertise it, but I think, I just would support splitting and giving the local realtor the residential and commercial, the Boulos. They don't do residential.
And to have someone with 1.5 years, it's a very it's a very complicated process, especially with properties that would be vacant or needing work. And it's for someone, even if they have support from their office, they're going to have support for people that are experts in commercial. Commercial is just a completely different beast than residential. It's just completely different. So I know we need to do something to sell these properties, but I just don't know what we could do to rethink how we could get, the local market. And I did actually get a notice from GBAR, the Greater Bangor Board of Associations, and I think the way that it was queried, I don't even know that I realized it was this. So maybe it's just a communication, the way we communicate the request could have been better generated.
Any other comments or questions on this? I don't know, Councilor Forney?
I would agree. I think resi and commercial need to be split. Yeah, they're two different animals.
I see the city manager moving.
So if I heard the finance director correctly, when we were asked if we would split them during the bid process,
Right,
we said no.
we said no.
So
So
if there is a desire to split them, then we should rebid this.
Okay, I thought it was after
That
the
would be
fact
my
that we decided
recommendation.
on it.
And I think
Right.
because somebody asked that during the bid
Yeah.
process,
right.
and we
agree,
posted
yes.
the answers to the
Oh,
questions.
well, I can see why Epstein would, they don't do
And
residential.
that may
so
have
they might-
contributed to
Right,
some
Okay.
of that lack.
yeah,
Well, I would
that
definitely
question
support
period was
rebid.
prior.
I
to
thought-
bids.
He decided after we got the bids to not
No,
split it,
It
okay.
was, part of the initial bid
Well, I
process.
don't know what the will
before
of
we
the committee
received
is, but I would support rebidding it, and letting me know they can bid on one, either, or both.
Yeah, we'll draft up two
I
RFPs.
don't know what, is that,
Is that a motion?
I can't make a motion, but is anybody?
All right, so what's the motion to rebid these items, pretty much?
Yeah, so people can bid on one.
So,
Separately.
Yep.
I'll make that motion then.
Okay. All right, so without objection, we'll
Yeah,
do that,
that's
okay.
great.
Yep,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I don't know if there was confusion because we probably thought there'd be a whole bunch of bidders coming in.
Yeah,
And some of them do both.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was expecting a lumber for this.
Yeah.
So this may be helpful.
And then pull stuff out of the water.
All right,
Good.
to City Hall.
All right, so our next item is for the furniture and fixtures for the City Hall renovation. This is for the first floor, furniture and fixtures. We did go out to bid. We received 4 bids, although one bid only bid on one piece, which was high density filing. 3 bidders bid on all of the aspects. This is desks, filing, stations, station dividers, basically all the furniture and fixtures for the first floor. The low bidder was WB Mason at $537,881. The council had previously approved $500,000 from unassigned fund balance to cover the furniture and fixtures. Looking at some older city hall projects. We had some savings from those older projects to cover the balance of $37,881. So our recommendation is to move forward with WB Mason to supply the furniture and fixtures for the first floor renovation. At $537,880.88 is the bid, and this would go to full council involved for next week.
I just have a question on this. I was under the impression when this quite a few months ago, we talked about how we're gonna fund some of the FF&E and other things. I was under the impression we thought that we would do the whole building rather than have the first floor redone and people that have been out of the building for a year, go back to the same old building. Was that, did we come to the consensus on that? I know, I guess maybe is it just the paint, we're gonna paint the walls and do new curtains, but they're gonna have the same furniture or?
We're gonna look at this, the initial, we got the, I guess, the direction that we would like to do some stuff for the other floors. This was part of the original scope of the renovations and within the budget of the renovation. So this is an extra money. So the budget that we had is only for, and the voter reg money that the voter bond that we did is only for the first floor renovations. And then we've added, the elevator, the generator, those types of things. So funding to pay for the furniture for the second and third floor or renovations would have to be a different pot of money that we haven't decided where that's coming from yet.
What's
so
the
it would
time
be-
frame for this?
This bid here is, they're looking for us to get this approved so they can get ordered, because the expectation is that it will get delivered in April of next year in time for the, as of right now, the construction is still on track to be completed in April. Part of the punch list before we're signed off and we can move back into the building is to have this delivered and installed, which is, the goal is to have that done in April. Based on our consultant, this would have to get ordered within the next few weeks in order for it to arrive in time for that. But we are looking at trying to do what we can on the second and third floor, new carpets,
Yeah.
painting. We certainly can look at trying to replace some furniture. Some of it's smaller dollar stuff, but if we're looking at.
I know some offices got new modular furniture a few
Right.
years ago, so it doesn't, everybody doesn't need it, but. All right, any other questions on this item or motion? So moved. Second,
Second.
all right. Approved,
Thank you.
last item.
So our last item is, once again, revising the mature tax and utility lien policy. And this is, earlier this year, we revised the policy to comply with the state law that was in place at that time. Since then, the legislature has made revisions to the law. So we're revising our policy to comply with the new revisions. And some of I'm not sure many of the revisions really were a positive for us, but there were some things, specifically what's part of the bigger things that are in this policy is that when we have a matured lien, so typically our liens mature in December or January. So when the lien matures under state law, which has always been the case, technically ownership transfers to the city of Bangor at that moment. We normally go through a more formal process to take possession of a property. We come to the council and say, hey, let's take possession of that. But we're really the legal owner of the property as soon as the lien matures. If the city wants to sell a property now that it's matured and we decide we want to sell the property, we have to send a notice to the former owner and tell them at least 90 days before we list the property for sale. So we'll have to hold the property for at least 3 months while we give them notice that we're about to put their property up for sale. We have to sell it with a licensed real estate broker, and the broker has to list the property for the highest reasonable price they believe the property will sell at. And when the property is sold, it has to be listed for at least 12 months. If the property sells within that 12 months, there's a list of expenses that we can then deduct from the sale price. The taxes, the utility taxes that would have had been due, had we taxed them instead of it being in our name if it was us. Protecting the property, insuring the property, some minor upgrades to the property, depending on if we did some revisions to it or fixed broken windows or that type of stuff. So once we deduct all of those allowable costs, if there's excess money left over, we have to provide that and send it to the prior owner. We give them notice that there's money available. They contact us, and that once they agree and they accept that money, it also waives their right to file any type of lawsuit against us saying the lien process was invalid. If we cannot find the former owner because we don't have an address or we've never been able to find them, which is the case with some of our properties, the money goes to the unclaimed property at the state. So those types of things are worked into this new policy, but that's the gist of what will happen. Again, fairly new. We're still working through, once we have a property and we have a realtor and we work through it, maybe tweaks here and there, but we think that this covers what we are required to do. Staff is working through the policy as to, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. But this will be on full council next week as well for approval. Grace is here to, she did most of the heavy lifting on this, so if there's any questions, I may defer to her.
Any questions for Grace? Oh, somebody's.
She'd like at least one.
Council Dean?
These properties, are they properties that have fallen into disrepair, or can these be any type of a property? Do you sometimes have higher valued properties that
Yeah,
have liens?
yeah, it would just be any property that maybe didn't pay their taxes. So it could be a property that's fallen into disrepair and it's been abandoned or whatever, or it could be a higher value property as well.
Typically, our properties that have matured liens are either vacant or homeowners that are struggling to pay their taxes. Doesn't necessarily have to be that. We could have high value property that for whatever reason, they stopped paying their taxes or forgot to pay their taxes and ignored the 8 notices that they would receive from us before the lien would mature. But it is possible.
Mhm.
And that sort of was the driving force behind the state law was coastal properties, lakeshore properties that, people, they've been passed down family generations and the new generation just couldn't afford to live there anymore. Liens matured, communities took the property and selling $1 million property and not having to return any of the money to the former owner didn't seem like it was appropriate. We don't really have that situation in Bangor for the most part, but it could occur.
No more questions? Is there a motion on this item? So moved. Second?
Second.
All right, without objection. Takes care of our agenda?
That's all I
All
have.
right, thanks, everybody. PED's coming up next.